Elite Facts presents
8 Facts and Misconceptions about the Freemasons. The Illuminati. That's the one thing that comes to almost anyone's mind when mentioning the Freemasons and their many Masonic lodges that are located across the globe. But we never really talk all that much about the facts and mysteries that surround this sacred organization. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today. Here are 10 facts and misconceptions about the Freemasons. 8. No atheists allowed. If you couldn't tell already, the Freemasons are a very religious group, so you'd probably expect it's impossible to become a Freemason if you're an atheist. The first requirement for potential members is that they must believe in a higher power of some sort. Now, they don't specify exactly which higher power you need to believe in, and they claim not to care. However, you must be able to define it for yourself. You can lie about it, but religion seems to be a point of honor among them. On the other hand, traditionally excluded groups, such as gay men, are included in Masonry as long as they believe in the same moral manner as other groups. The temple still excludes women, but some groups are currently challenging that fact.
7.
They work to control politics and finance in various countries. One of the first things that comes to mind when mentioning the Freemasons is how they work behind the scenes when it comes to politics and finance. The official corruption of Masonry is well documented, but often covered up. 500,000 Masons in England are disproportionately involved in banking, politics, and government. Even hospitals and universities are often controlled by the Masons.
6.
Their symbol is on the dollar bill. Another fairly obvious fact. If you've ever looked closely at the US dollar bill, you're more than likely to have seen the all-seeing eye above the pyramid. Now, most people instantly think Illuminati when seeing this. However, this is actually the Freemasons' official symbol next to their compass symbol, and the Latin underneath is a Freemason motto that means New World Order. I mean, the Freemasons are essentially a subsidiary of the Illuminati after all. Many say that the decision to include this Masonic symbol was not influenced by Freemasons. Benjamin Franklin was the only Mason on the design committee, but the coincidence remains fascinating all the same.
5.
The Freemasons played a key role in space travel. A lot of people believe that the Freemasons' agenda is to take over the world, but some Masons seem to have their sights set on the moon instead. It's been reported that astronauts in the Apollo program, and yes, that includes Buzz Aldrin, were self-professed Masons. Their right flags have been to the moon and back, and Aldrin seems to have claimed the moon for his Masonic lodge in Texas. Now, as you'd probably expect, some of these strange and scandalous secrets of the Freemasons are obviously urban legends that don't have any solid proof to show that they are fact, and they should be taken with a grain of salt. But others seem to contain some degree of truth. One thing is for certain, Masonry is by no means an outdated cult. It still has many active members who seem to be working for some purpose, even if we can't all agree on what that is. 4. The Lodge Goat. So this one is a pretty weird myth. Let's just get this out of the way and say that Freemasons do not ride on a goat in their lodges. This rumor was a joke made up by the Masons themselves to worry nervous new initiates. Since at least the Middle Ages, the goat has been symbolic of the devil, and stories were circulated then about witches calling forth Satan, who came riding into town on a goat to take part in their blasphemous orgies. Then, as the Freemasons started to gain popularity, detractors accused them of witchcraft, which is probably where the notion of initiates riding a goat came from. Considering their belief in a higher power, advertising it didn't help, considering that some early ritual books from the fraternity referred to God as God of all things and abbreviated it as GOAT. That was quickly changed, and God is now referred to by Masons by the acronym GAOTU for Grand Architect of the Universe, which in all fairness does sound cooler. As the golden age of fraternalism resulted in literally hundreds of other groups popping up in competition with the Masons, some were obviously less serious than others. Such items only served to perpetuate the myth that Masons and other fraternities required a goat ride ritual for their initiations. Freemasonry never has. Rest assured, there is no lodge goat. The degrees of Masonry are serious business to Freemasons, meaning that there was no time whatsoever for horsing around, or goating around in this case, we guess.
3.
Masons descend from the Knights Templar. There's been a lot made of the Freemasons' purported lineage and heritage related to the Knights Templar. The powerful military and religious order was established to protect medieval pilgrims to the Holy Land and was dissolved by Pope Clement V under pressure from King Philip IV of France in 1312. After modern Masonry appeared in Britain between the 17th and 18th centuries, a small group of Freemasons claimed to have acquired the secrets of the Templars and adopted Templar symbols and terminology. For example, naming certain levels of Masonic hierarchy after Templar degrees. But those Knights Templar degrees and Masonic orders had no historic connection with the original Knights Templar. These are myths or symbolic figures that were used by the Masons. But because the association has been made with these degrees, and the degrees had perpetuated themselves, after a time it began to look like there had been a connection. Helen Nicholson, author of the book The Knights Templar, A New History, agrees that there is no possibility that Freemasons are somehow descended from the Knights Templar. By the time of the first Masons, the Cardiff University historian said, quote, "There were no more Templars."
2.
Freemasons rule the world. This is probably the most talked about subject when discussing the Freemasons. But let's be honest, there is good reasoning behind this theory of the Freemasons ruling the world. Maybe it's the impressive list of prominent Freemasons, from Napoleon to FDR to King Kamehameha, the 4th and 5th. That's led some to suggest that the group is a small cabal running the globe. But Masonic historian Kinney paints a picture of a largely decentralized group that might have trouble running anything with much efficiency. He says, quote, "I think the ideals that Masonry embodies, which have to do with universal brotherhood, are shared by Masons around the world regardless of religious, political, or national differences. But having shared ideals is one thing. Having some sort of shared hierarchy is something else altogether." Kinney also made note that the U.S. alone has 51 Grand Lodges, with each state in the country having one, plus the District of Columbia. Each of these largely independent organizations oversees its many local blue or beginner lodges and has little real coordination with other Grand Lodges.
1.
Religion or cult? If there's one thing the Freemasons are vocal about, it's that they stress that their organization is not a religion, that it has no unique theology, and it does not represent a path for believers to salvation or other divine rewards. Regardless of this, as we mentioned earlier in the video, to be accepted into Freemasonry, initiates must believe in a God, any God. Christians may be in the majority, but Jews, Muslims, and others are well represented in Masonic circles. At lodge meetings, religious discussion is traditionally taboo, but some religious leaders believe that Masonic rituals and beliefs, with its temples, altars, and oaths, do constitute an opposing faith, and the Masonic refusal to rank one religion above the others hasn't always been popular. A 1983 Catholic declaration approved by Pope John Paul II, for example, said that, quote, "Catholics enrolled in Masonic associations are involved in serious sin and may not approach Holy Communion." Another way of looking at this group is that it is literally just a big boys drinking club, as most stories of people being involved with Freemasonry in this day and age seem to revolve around drinking.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more elite facts.